They told me I could still come to the trip, but I'd need to book everything myself. Then I saw the statement. They already used my card for flights, hotels, and VIP access. I said nothing. Just opened the app and hit dispute all. At boarding, their tickets were voided. My dad texted, "We're stuck in security." I smiled and replied. It started like a lot of things in my family, a quiet assumption wrapped in fake politeness. My parents started mentioning a trip back in January. Nothing direct. Just offhand comments like, "Wouldn't it be nice if we all did something together for once?" Or, "We haven't had a real family vacation in years." At first, I didn't say anything because I thought it was just talk. They always do this, paint these grand family plans, then act confused when nobody volunteers to bankroll it. By February, it got weirder. My mom started asking me strange questions. Stuff like, "You still have that travel rewards card, right?" Or, "Didn't you say you had a bunch of miles saved up?" I should have seen it then. But you never expect your own family to steal from you. Not like that. They never directly asked me to join the trip. Not once. What they did do was build the whole thing around me without telling me. My sister, Danielle, started adding me to group chats filled with links to resorts, flight trackers, reviews of expensive restaurants. They'd drop little jabs if I didn't respond fast enough. "Don't worry, we'll handle it. You're always so busy, Kyle." That kind of thing. Then one night, my mom said it like it was nothing. "If you decide to come, you'll have to book your stuff yourself. We already took care of ours." She smiled when she said it, like I should be grateful I even had the option. That night, I opened my credit card app just to check something unrelated. And I froze. The balance was almost 10 grand higher than it should have been. At first, I thought it had to be fraud. Then I looked closer at the transactions. It wasn't just one or two. It was over a dozen charges, a round-trip flight for 3 to LAX, 4 nights at a luxury hotel in Santa Monica, a booked SUV from the airport, a prepaid guided tour package, even a spa day and what looked like a down payment on bottle service at a club. All booked within the past 48 hours. All using my card. I couldn't breathe for a second. I went through every charge. All of it. Every ticket had their names. Not mine. Danielle's flight, my mom's suite, my dad's rental car. It was like I'd won a vacation for them. And no one had said a word to me. I didn't confront them. I didn't even tell them I knew. I just looked at my screen, felt the heat in my chest, and started calmly hitting dispute, one by one. I flagged everything. Then I called the credit card company, told them my card had been used without permission, and they shut it down within 10 minutes. I didn't say a word all week. They kept making little remarks about how excited they were. My dad kept bragging about how smooth everything had gone. Danielle posted a countdown on her Instagram. I stayed quiet, waited. The morning of the flight, I stayed in bed. Around 6:40 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was my dad. "We're stuck at security. Something's wrong with the tickets." 10 seconds later, my mom. "Kyle. The airline says the payment didn't go through. What's going on?" I watched the bubbles appear like they were all texting at once. I let it sit for a bit, then typed a single message. "You might want to ask whoever used my credit card without telling me." Then I put the phone down, got up, and made breakfast. And that was just the beginning. They came through the door like ghosts. It was just past 10 a.m., and the only sound was the wheels of Danielle's suitcase bumping over the threshold. No excited chatter. No. "We're finally home." Just dead silence and 3 people looking like they'd been kicked out of the airport, which, essentially, they had. I was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and a half-eaten muffin, scrolling through news on my laptop. I didn't even look up at them. My mom passed first, clutching her tote bag like it owed her something. My dad followed, still wearing his travel neck pillow around his shoulders like a clown collar. Danielle had sunglasses on inside the house, which probably wasn't for fashion. No one said a word to me. Not, "Hi." Not, "We need to talk." Nothing. They went straight to their rooms. Doors shut. I sipped my coffee and waited. About an hour later, my dad came back down and stood awkwardly in the doorway. No greeting, no apology. Just that same look he gets when he's about to say something he knows is complete crap but hopes he can sell it anyway. "There's obviously been some kind of misunderstanding," he said. I didn't bother answering. I just stared at him. He went on about how they thought I had, implicitly agreed, to handle the trip. That it made the most sense, financially. That I'm single, no kids, stable income. That I should be helping out the family when I can. That it's just money. That they'd planned everything for me as well, and that I should be grateful. I asked, "Did you think I wouldn't notice nearly 10 grand missing from my account?" He said they were going to pay me back, just not right away. And besides, it was a gift to the family. His voice got tighter when I didn't respond. Like I was the problem for not letting them rob me without complaint. Then he asked me to call the credit card company and reverse the dispute. He said the tickets could still be rebooked if we acted fast. Like all this was some kind of bureaucratic hiccup I could clean up with a phone call. I told him no. That's it. Just no. He stood there for a few more seconds before muttering something under his breath and leaving the room. I didn't care enough to ask what it was. The rest of the day, I barely saw them. I heard Danielle upstairs blasting music like she was trying to drown out her own thoughts. My mom was quiet, which meant she was either furious or busy writing one of her emotionally manipulative essays disguised as texts. Sure enough, that night I got the message. A long one. It started with, "We're just disappointed," moved into, "You've changed," and ended with, "After everything we've done for you." No mention of the theft. No acknowledgement of what actually happened. Just guilt and drama, the usual combo. I didn't respond. By the next morning, they had announced they were postponing the trip. My dad returned the luggage to Target. Danielle deleted her countdown post and replaced it with a vague quote about fake people. My mom cleaned the kitchen like she was scrubbing out her feelings. I saved nearly $10,000. But even more than that, I saw them clearly for the first time. This wasn't just a one-time scam. This was how they operated. This was who they were. But they weren't done. I knew they wouldn't let it end like that. They felt humiliated, exposed, and they were going to try to get back at me for it. They just didn't know that their revenge plan was going to blow up in their faces. And this time, there wouldn't be a second chance. It didn't take long for the revenge phase to start. They were too proud to apologize, too self-righteous to admit what they did, so the next best thing, in their minds, was to turn the heat up on me and make me feel like the bad guy. At first, it was all passive-aggressive stuff. My mom accidentally threw out a padded envelope from my desk, claiming she thought it was garbage. Inside was a replacement key fob for my apartment building. $70 gone. Danielle left her laundry in the washer for 2 days and then snapped at me when I moved it to dry mine. My dad started vacuuming loudly outside my door during Zoom meetings, like that just happened to be the one time he needed to do it. It was like living in a sitcom, except not funny, just tense and weird. I kept my cool. I didn't bite. That was probably what frustrated them most. Then it started getting more deliberate. One morning, I went outside and my car was missing. I was seconds away from reporting it stolen when I got a text from Danielle. "Chill, I just needed it for a Target run." She hadn't asked? She'd taken my keys from the dish in the hallway. I found the car parked illegally 2 blocks away with a $113 parking ticket stuck to the windshield. When I brought it up, she laughed and said, "Well, maybe if you didn't act like a stranger in your own house." That week, my groceries went missing from the front porch. I checked the delivery app, and to my surprise, the order had been cancelled halfway through. Then reordered, with a cart full of junk food and energy drinks. The delivery name? Danielle. She didn't even deny it. "You said we needed more snacks," she said like it was a joke. I knew exactly what they were doing. They couldn't outright scream at me, not without admitting they were wrong, so they were trying to wear me down with inconvenience. But I wasn't a kid anymore. I didn't lose my temper. I just wrote it all down. Screenshotted the app changes. Took pictures of the car. Kept emails. Quietly started building a record. And then things got darker. I got an email from my bank saying there had been a suspicious inquiry into a new credit card application. I hadn't applied for anything. I called immediately. Someone had submitted an online application using my full name, birthday, and social security number. The billing address? My parents' house. The email? A Gmail address with my dad's initials. It had been flagged for potential fraud and denied, but the inquiry still hit my credit report. My score dropped. I sat there staring at the screen, realizing this wasn't just payback anymore. This was identity theft. I didn't confront them. I didn't walk downstairs and yell. I filed a report with the FTC, froze my credit, and submitted everything to the local police. The logs, the screenshots, the confirmation emails. I used every piece of evidence I'd been collecting. I didn't even tell them I'd done it. 2 weeks later, a plainclothes detective rang the doorbell. I stayed upstairs, listened from the hallway. He asked for my dad. Said there'd been a report of attempted fraud linked to the household. They spoke for about 10 minutes. No handcuffs. No yelling. Just paperwork. A formal warning. But the mood after that changed completely. Danielle stopped using my stuff. My mom avoided me entirely. My dad didn't say a word to me for 3 days. I heard him on the phone later that night, whispering. Probably calling someone to ask what a fraud investigation meant for his precious image. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be left alone. And finally, they got the message. But they weren't the only ones being watched now. What they didn't realize was that their attempt to ruin me triggered something much bigger. Because a few days later, I got a call I wasn't expecting. And it wasn't from them. The call came on a Wednesday. I was in the middle of a project when my phone buzzed with an unknown number from out of state. I usually ignore those, but something made me pick it up. The voice was calm, professional. He introduced himself as part of the fraud department for one of the banks I'd already contacted. But he wasn't calling about the original credit card application. This was something else. Apparently, in the process of investigating the fraud report I submitted, they found multiple inquiries using my name and social across 3 different financial institutions. 2 of them were denied. 1 of them was approved. I didn't understand at first. I'd only reported 1. He walked me through it. A credit line had been opened in my name almost a year ago. It had sat in use for a few months, then suddenly spiked with charges in the last 3 weeks, just small ones. Gas, groceries, a few Amazon purchases. But it was definitely active. And definitely not mine. I asked where the statements had been going. He gave me the address. My parents' house. That was the moment it hit me. This didn't start with the vacation. That was just the first time I noticed. But they'd been doing this behind my back for longer. Quietly. Carefully. Probably thinking I'd never find out. Maybe they thought I'd see the debt someday and assume it was my own mess. Or maybe they thought I'd just pay it off without asking questions. I asked the guy on the phone what I needed to do next. He said they'd already flagged the account, and a more thorough investigation was underway. He said I might get contacted by law enforcement again, depending on what turned up. When I hung up, I just sat there for a while. Not angry. Just quiet. Processing. I hadn't told them anything since the detective showed up the first time. And now I understood why they went silent afterward. They must have realized they opened the wrong door. That night, my dad came into my room with a glass of whiskey and tried to make small talk. Asked if I'd watched the game. Told me I seemed distant. I just said I was tired and kept typing. He stood there like he wanted to say something else, then left. My mom was different. She didn't try to talk at all. Just kept the TV low and the lights dim. Danielle had stopped even making eye contact. It was like they were all holding their breath. I didn't change anything about my routine. I still worked from home, made my own food, kept to myself. But inside I was done. Not just with the fraud. With them. With all of it. The manipulation. The guilt. The idea that I owed them just because we shared DNA. Then, a few days later, something happened that pushed it all to the edge. A letter arrived. Not for me, for Danielle. But I saw the name of the sender on the envelope. The bank that had opened the fraudulent card. She'd used her real address. Her name was now tied to the account. And that was the final thread. Because what they did next wasn't just desperate. It was reckless. The letter sat on the hallway table for 2 days. White envelope, clean font, that familiar bank logo in the corner. I didn't open it, I didn't have to. The account was in my name, but Danielle had clearly tied herself to it, probably by listing her address or even trying to use it online. Maybe she thought no one would ever trace it back. They still didn't know I'd received that call. Still didn't know how much I knew. By the 3rd day, it disappeared from the table. I didn't see who took it, but I didn't need to. That night, Danielle was quieter than usual. Not sulking, nervous. Like someone who just realized their name was on paperwork they didn't understand. The next day, I came home from a grocery run and found my room open. They never went in my room. Everything looked the same, until I checked my laptop. The browser history had been cleared. I never clear it. The tabs I'd left open were gone. My backpack, which I always zip, was half open. Nothing missing, just disturbed. I didn't say a word. I just turned my room into a vault. Replaced the doorknob with one that locked from the inside. Started keeping my devices with me at all times. I even set up a webcam that streamed to a cloud folder. Just in case. That weekend, my dad made an announcement over dinner that they were reorganizing the house finances and asked if I'd be willing to sign a few things to help with the refinance on the mortgage. I nearly laughed. I asked, "Why would my name be on the house?" He said it was just a technicality. Some equity thing. No risk. Nothing major. I got up. Didn't touch my plate. Didn't say another word. I knew what they were doing. They were cornered. And instead of stopping, they were trying to leverage the only thing left: paperwork. Debt. Ownership. If they could tie my name to something big, they'd have something to hold over me. Something to blame me for if it all came crashing down. That night, I sent an email to my boss and requested a remote work transfer out of state. I had a cousin in Arizona who'd been offering me his spare room for months. I told him I was finally ready to take it. He didn't even ask why. Just said the door was open. I planned it quietly. Booked a one-way ticket. Scheduled a moving truck for the essentials. I didn't give them a chance to sabotage it. The night before I left, I sat them down. All three. I laid out everything. The charges. The credit inquiry. The second account. The fraud reports. I showed Danielle the letter with her name on it and watched her face go white. My dad tried to bluster through it. My mom didn't speak. Not once. I told them the police might follow up again, and if they did, I'd cooperate fully. I told them I'd be taking my name off everything. No cosigns, no shared bills, no family emergencies. I was out. Then I walked upstairs and packed my last bag. They didn't try to stop me. They didn't say goodbye. And they still didn't understand that the saddest part wasn't what they did. It was that I'd stopped caring. Kyle's story, Part 6, final part. I left before sunrise. No goodbyes, no second glances. Just slid my last bag into the back of the rental car, started the engine, and drove. My phone was on airplane mode. I didn't want texts. I didn't want one last desperate plea. I didn't want to hear anything. By the time I crossed into Arizona, my cousin had already cleared out the spare room and left a key under the mat. I let myself in, dropped my stuff, and stood in the quiet for a long time. It was the first time in years I felt like I could exhale. For a few weeks, nothing happened. I worked. I slept. I started running in the mornings. Danielle didn't message. My dad didn't call. My mom didn't even try to fake concern. It was like I'd vanished and they'd moved on. But I knew better. The silence was never silence with them. It was just prelude. One afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. It was a woman from a law firm. Not local. She asked if I was Kyle. Confirmed my full name. Then she asked me if I was aware that I'd been listed as a guarantor on a new loan application submitted 2 weeks prior. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She said the application had already been flagged and held because of the fraud alerts attached to my credit file. That's the only reason she was calling. She didn't need anything from me. She just wanted to confirm whether I had been involved. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even shocked anymore. I just asked, "Was the loan for a car or a house?" She said it was for a business. The name of the business? Danielle's. They tried again. Even after everything, they tried again. I told her to forward me all the documentation. And I made one last call, to my lawyer. I explained everything. The fraud, the previous police report, the attempt to open credit in my name again. He told me something I hadn't thought of. Because this was the second attempt tied to the same people, it qualified as patterned intent. Which in our state, opened the door to civil litigation, and possibly criminal charges. That's when the full picture clicked. They weren't just reckless. They were desperate. The failed trip. The fraud reports. The loan. It wasn't about punishing me. It was about survival. My parents had buried themselves in debt, and I was the only financial lifeline they ever had. Danielle probably thought she could launch a business with stolen credit and keep it hidden until it either succeeded or collapsed. But now it was public. The investigation widened. The detective contacted me again. This time, he asked if I wanted to press formal charges. I hesitated for a while. I wasn't sure. It wasn't about revenge. Then I remembered something. Back when I was a kid, my mom once told me, "Family means never turning your back, even when you're angry." But they turned their backs on me the second I said, "No." So I signed the paperwork. Months later, the fallout was quiet but complete. The loan attempts stopped. My name was cleared. Danielle's credit took the hit. My parents had to refinance the house in their own names, which they could barely do. And then it was silence. Real this time. They don't call. They don't text. There are no more fake holidays, no guilt-tripping messages, no surprise family updates. It's like I never existed in that house. And honestly, I prefer it that way. Update 1. I thought it was over. After I moved to Arizona, I blocked their numbers. I changed my email. I even filed a change of address with USPS so nothing from that house would ever land in my mailbox again. I did everything I could to draw a hard line, thinking that once the legal dust settled, they'd finally let go. For a while it worked. 6 months passed with total silence. No letters, no late-night emails, no fake emergencies. I started feeling something that had been missing for years: quiet. I focused on work, started dating again, reconnected with a few old friends who knew nothing about my family, which was exactly how I liked it. Then the letter came. Plain white envelope. No return address. Postmarked from their state. I opened it cautiously, already bracing for drama. But what I found was worse: a legal notice from a bankruptcy court. My name appeared in the middle of the second paragraph, listed as a co-signer on multiple personal loans, some over a year old. Loans I'd never applied for. Never even heard of. At first I thought it was a clerical mistake. Some glitch. But the letter came with attachments, scanned documents, filled out in handwriting I recognized too well. My signature was there. Forged. On at least 3 separate contracts. My parents had kept going even after the detective, even after the warnings, even after I walked out and shut the door behind me. They hadn't stopped. They just got more careful. They probably thought bankruptcy would hide everything. That by including me as a co-signer, they could shift responsibility, or maybe just use my name to prop themselves up long enough to dig the hole deeper. I didn't even hesitate. I called my lawyer, forwarded everything, and within 2 days we had filed a formal fraud response with the court. I submitted my previous police report, the documents from the detective's visit, and the flagged accounts. Everything lined up: pattern behavior, multiple attempts, and now forged documents filed in federal bankruptcy court. That's when things went from civil to criminal. The court removed my name from the filings and referred the case to the district attorney's office. Within a month, an investigation was opened. I didn't know the details, just what my lawyer shared. But I know subpoenas were issued. My parents were questioned. Danielle, too. Then the bank statements started coming in. Apparently, they'd been living off loans for over a year. Not just a failed vacation. They'd maxed out cards in my name, refinanced the house 3 times, opened lines of credit with fake documents, and even used one of my old pay stubs as proof of income for a loan Danielle tried to take out for a clothing store that never launched. They weren't just reckless. They were desperate. And this time, there was no backing out. The court case is ongoing, but the weight of it landed fast. Their assets were frozen. Their house was flagged. They've been cut off from every angle. No more tricks, no more stolen identities. And none of this is private now, word spread. Friends, neighbors, employers. They haven't contacted me since the investigation began. Not to deny anything. Not to apologize. Not to beg. Nothing. And that's how I know this was never about family.